your top business priorities and give one to each of your 3 vendors. In their case, it was HP, IBM, and Accenture. So they picked one of their top, 3 of their top 3, or their top business capabilities. They handed one to each vendor and said, come back to us in 3 months and tell us what you think, where we should be innovating in these areas. So leverage your vendors, that's the first point. Because they spend a lot of money on their R&D and their innovation labs. The second point here was, second idea was, they were in the Boston area, so we said, why don't you go engage the MIT Media Lab or any university that has some good technology thinking. So they joined as a sponsor of the MIT Media Lab. So that served 2 purposes. One, they could bring their ideas and their thinking to the Media Lab a couple times a year and bat it around with some of the best thinkers out there in terms of technology innovation. And secondly, they could bring their business counterparts with them as a way to get away from the office and to have somebody else tell them how important some of these technologies were as opposed to them doing it all the time. So 2 ideas that really worked well. Out of that, they came up with 3 ideas within a year that were starting to add bottom line impact to the business. One example was they had, one of their businesses was an insurance business. They had a huge volume of unstructured text in emails and documents and notes taken by their underwriters and their claims people. So when someone would make a claim, the underwriter takes a bunch of notes. And those notes were in unstructured form. So they used some text mining and data mining technologies and applied some algorithms to it to identify places where they thought fraud was going on, which is a big issue in insurance. So they actually got some real value out of that within a year. Okay, third area here is around organizational involvement in business design. And by business design, again, I mean cross-system, enterprise-wide or business unit, whatever the scope is that you're looking at, multi-system, multi-year kind of planning here. So here's a cartoon to wake you up. These guys say, last year we recognized that our processes were far too complex. Whoop. So we put them in the cloud. I think sometimes our business counterparts think that that's how we solve some problems. We take a hard business problem, we throw technology at it, and we think it's going to get better. Well, what I'm proposing here is this notion of business design, linking the discussion that the business people are having, teaming together with them to figure out how to explicitly link those discussions around goals and objectives and metrics into the technology planning process. An explicit link, not a here are your top 5 priorities. Let's go talk generally about those priorities and come up with our IT plan. Actually explicitly go through a business design process, what we call business architecture. This is a view on how you might think about it. But the important thing here is that you do it explicitly and you engage your business counterparts. There's one organization that I worked with last year who established a design council made up of the chief strategy officer, 2 or 3 people who were business heads, and a couple of their lieutenant players, and the CTO. They met twice a month to talk about this business architecture and changes that were coming from the business that might impact it. I think that's a good start toward creating this sort of organization-wide discussion around business design that IT can facilitate. I think a couple of the great examples here around business engaging in this business design discussion. One healthcare company was undergoing a major transformation basically in every core system that they had because they had aged to the point where they couldn't scale it anymore. The CEO of the business started calling himself the chief architect and was basically the strategic owner, if you will, of the design going forward. Very, very involved. And this is a $15, $20 billion business, very large business where you wouldn't expect someone at that level to engage in a design process like that. Another one of my clients, the CEO of an insurance company, a lot of insurance examples.